Hello, Sooner Nation, OU Insider subscribers, Coach Bryan Clinton enthusiasts, people who are excited that the Women's College World Series is here. It's not only just here, but Oklahoma, for the billionth time, is one of the 8 teams in the field. And that's what we're going to talk about today on this episode of the Oklahoma Drill, a podcast fueled by OU Insider. I am Jesse Crittenden. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Bryan Clinton. And Mr. Clinton, we're going to keep this short and sweet today, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, go Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
Go Thunder.
Have to get one of those in.
Go Thunder.
Knock on the wood just because I'm superstitious.
You're a little stitious.
I'm a little stitious. So yeah, man, things are going great.
I remember the last time the Thunder were up 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals, so I'm not assuming anything. Not assuming anything. I still have nightmares about 2016, but things are feeling pretty good as we record this on a Tuesday at 12:45.
Yep.
And Bryan, I think before we dive into the World Series and what I think is one of the most interesting fields we've seen in quite some time, I think we need to take a minute to just appreciate that OU softball is back here. Something that I don't want to frame it as a miracle story. This team of underdogs beat the odds and made it back here. This team is incredibly talented, so it's not about selling any of that short. I think it's just there's a lot of ways this season could have gone when you lose the talent that this team lost, when you're relying on not only a bunch of young players, but a bunch of players who haven't been here before.
Yeah.
And to just make it back here, back to Oklahoma City, and kind of in an anticlimactic way where the narrative ends up being, of course, Oklahoma made it back, instead of like, it's actually incredibly impressive that they made it back. Bryan, we talked after almost every series through some of the highs and lows, relative lows, and thinking that there were a lot of variables. And despite all that, Oklahoma's back in the World Series. It's just,
yes, they are.
Is there a moment? Do you kind of need to take a moment to just appreciate that this team's back here?
Yeah, and I think that would be a good practice for softball fans in general, because at this point you've got fatigue. There's Oklahoma fatigue. It's difficult not for that to happen when you have the level of dominance that they have had. But like, take it the way that I would try to frame it is, if this was a one-off, Stanford lost Nigeria Kennedy. So if Stanford had lost Nigeria Kennedy and their top 7 bats, or top however many bats that would have been, top 5, at least top 5 from last season, and you come into this year with total unknown and they hadn't won the last 4 national titles. If Stanford had found its way to being where they're at right now without Nigeria Kennedy, like, it would be just a huge story, because there's a bunch of freshmen on this team. How in the world are they doing this? That we've never seen turnover this way. But because it's Oklahoma, it kind of gets washed. Like, there's kind of a wash to that. It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. And I think the best way to sum that up is the amount of growth that this team has shown from April to May, and now we're heading into June. Look no further than Game 2 of the Super Regional. Like, this is a team that struggled mightily against Alabama earlier in the year offensively, and they just exploded. And so, yeah, it's incredible what this team has done. It just shows you how special Patty Gasso is.
I'm really glad you mentioned that Game 2 of the Super Regional, because that, to me, not only that game, but the third inning of that game encapsulated all of the growth of this team. And I asked Patty about that inning specifically after that game, where I tweeted this out, but to put into context, I mean, going into the series, and I told you, I thought if OU won Game 1, they would sweep.
Yes.
Just, but I thought if they lose, it was an interesting series because Bama thoroughly outplayed them in Tuscaloosa a few weeks ago. There was nothing
Yep.
fluky about that. Bama outplayed them. And
Yep.
I thought this is a different OU team. They just handled business through the Norman Regional, but I thought, hey, this is still a young team. This is a good Bama team. I wondered about the mental aspect of that. I just, I knew OU's different in the postseason. They're different at home, but they had 7 runs throughout the entirety of that Alabama series a few weeks ago. 7.
Yep.
They had 15 hits as a team in that series.
Right.
They're both of those numbers the fewest of any 3-game stretch all year.
Yep.
The offensive low point of low points for them. They have 7 runs in that whole series. They had 8 in the 3rd inning in game 2.
Yeah.
They outscored themselves through a 3-game series against Bama in 1 inning. And it's they had 9 consecutive productive at bats that found base, and it's just hit after hit after hit, and it's coming from players that, I mean, we know Ella Parker and Casty Pickering are awesome, but it's players who haven't been here before, who haven't done this before. It's Gabby Garcia who hits a home run every time she goes to the plate now. It's Barker who has been. We need to talk about her more in a second. It's Sydney Barker. It's Nelly Macaron Marinas who has embodied everything that you want in a team captain. Yeah. She's a redshirt. She's basically she's a true freshman, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is like, there were all these questions heading into the postseason, right? It's like, am I shocked that OU's back in the World Series? No, but it's youth, it's inexperience, it's some of the offensive issues we'd seen this team have, it's pitching staff depth. And then they just come in and rout Bama, and they do it in 1 inning, put that game away, and they get to the World Series outscoring their 6 opponents, or excuse me, their 5 games in regional and super regional by a combined score of 47-5. They just took care of business. And I think that 3rd inning, that Tuscaloosa series wasn't a year ago. It was like a little over a month ago.
Right.
And to see that growth and it to happen so quickly, and it's then you think back to all the times Patty Gasso said this team hasn't peaked, and it's like, well, I think they're peaking now.
Yeah, they're definitely approaching that.
Yeah, and I think that might have been the biggest thing for me is I think this is a team that has figured themselves out, particularly from a lineup standpoint. They know now, what the lineup's going to be, and part of that is Abby Dayton batting 9th, and she's been awesome.
Yes, she has.
It's Pickering as probably the best leadoff hitter in the sport. And then Sydney Barker in the 3 spot.
Yeah.
And this is a true freshman that played played bit roles through conference play and is now not only the full-time starter, she's at the top of the lineup. And I think that maybe to me, that 3rd inning, that weekend as a whole encapsulated, this team knows who it is.
Right.
They figured some things out. I think that was my thought as I was watching all of that happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like the streak, the hit streak for her. I mean, she is. I don't even remember how many games we're at this point, but I know she's had a hit in every game of the postseason, and she really kind of exploded with that 2 home run game against Arkansas before everything started. But that the way that the lineup has just kind of rounded into form, I don't want to say overnight, but like very quickly and efficiently over the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's been that like that's the team that everybody kind of feared over the last several years. I mean, they come into they lead the field in home runs. Ohio State had 137, I believe, on the year. OU's got 115, most of anybody left in the series. And the power hitting is just there. And when they are scoring the way that they have been able to, is really, really difficult to stop them. And they're getting production from all spots in the lineup, and that's what makes it very difficult.
And they've shown all the characteristics of a Patty Gasso team, which is peaking at the right time and figuring themselves out at the perfect time. And like, it wasn't it wasn't out of the question. This is a culture that's won championships and all that stuff. But it's just with a team this young, that just wasn't a given. And the fact
Right.
that, again, like their low points are relative, right? They don't really have low points, but there are moments in the regular season that's like, man, if they lose, like I think one difference in this team is other teams, it was like, man, it's kind of hard to see how they lose. This year's team is
Hmm.
like, okay, I can see how they lose. It's they don't get enough consistent hitting. Sam Landry maybe is good, but the other pitchers don't come along, right? Like there's things you can point
Yes.
to,
Yes. There's a
right?
formula.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for them to kind of figure themselves out and this quickly offensively, and then you even look at the pitching staff, and Sam Landry was great in that first game, but then Kirsten Deal, who like wasn't she wasn't like, oh my god, lights out. She was amazing. She was just good, and that's
Hmm.
like that's
That's all they needed.
that's
Yeah.
all
That's
they
all they
just
need.
needed her to be good, and she was good.
Yep.
And she gave up a couple bombs because you know what, Alabama's a good team, and you're going to give up home runs sometimes, but like nothing that game through four, she could have finished it. They brought Lowry in that fifth inning to, to get her some
Which I
experience.
liked. Yeah. I
Yeah, I
liked
did too.
that move. Yeah.
But Kirsten Dill could have finished it, and I thought she was good. She got some timely outs, got some timely strikeouts, and just
Yeah.
never let Bama find a rhythm. Even those solo bombs, it's like she gave up a couple of those, but then responded really well every time that happened. And
Yes.
so I actually think it's better that it wasn't an A+ game from Kirsten Deal. It was just a good game. It's
Yep.
replicable,
Yep.
right? And I think that's part of it too. Is in addition to the offense, it's like, oh, you got a good game from Kirsten Deal.
Hmm.
That's huge. It's
Right.
big.
Yeah. If you go into Oklahoma City this week and you're getting that from Kirsten Deal, you're getting good innings from Lowry. Like I I find it hard to place another team over them as the favorite if you're getting those two things in addition to what they're already having. So that was really the biggest. I mean, yes, the 13 runs stands out. Like don't get it twisted. You look and see 13-2. Holy crap, that's a lot of offense. But the pitching and the ability to rebound from those solo shots, it was huge.
It was. And now, because of the way they performed, they get to Oklahoma City, and it's like, as much as it is a feel good story that this year's team is back, um, they're not only clearly not satisfied, they can go win. They can win this whole thing. They've proven that. Having said that, this is about as tough of a first round draw as
Yeah,
they could have gotten.
yeah,
I think Tennessee or Nebraska. I think both of those would have been tougher or would have been tough
hmm,
opponents. Jordy Ball, particularly or potentially with a chip on her shoulder, would not have been fun for this Oklahoma team. It would have been great as a viewer. It would have been great
yeah,
covering it.
yeah,
But instead, they get a Tennessee team that, if there were two, I mean, they lost 3 series in a regular season: Bama, Tennessee, and Florida. Um, Tennessee beat them in Norman, and this matchup is Thursday at 1:30. This matchup is really interesting to me because, like, as much as we saw the growth for OU from that Bama series to the Super Regional, obviously they've grown since that Tennessee series. I mean, that was 2 months ago.
right.
Tennessee's a step up in
Yes, they are.
as a team. And that, like, part of why that Alabama series was so surprising in the regular season was because I didn't think OU's offense would struggle because Bama doesn't have like a clear cut ace.
They don't
Tennessee
have
has a clear cut ace.
yeah.
And I mean, Carolyn Pickens is, I mean, it's Nija, Kennedy, and Pickens and Ball as the top 3 pitchers in softball.
Yeah.
And as much as OU has grown, and I think that's a really good thing, they're going to need that because Pickens is good, man. She was in that Nebraska Super Regional. The reason why they won those last 2 games is because the pitching staff was like, "Oh, screw it. We're just throwing Pickens all 14 innings of these 2 games."
Yeah.
She gets 21 strikeouts in those 2 games, and I mean, you don't get any warming up period. This is probably the toughest first round draw I've seen for OU in a while at the World Series.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, it's tough. Like you just said, you kind of walk into, you don't want to call. it's going to be a rock fight. I guess is the best. Like if the game comes down to a rock fight, like that's good news for Tennessee,
Right.
because Pickens is she started. How many of the games against Oklahoma did she start? I know she start. I know she had 6 strikeouts in the first game.
So she pitched 12.2 innings,
Okay.
gave up 10 hits and 4 runs.
Okay.
And I think she had 6 strikeouts in both the games she
Yep.
appeared.
Yep. And
She was great.
right, and no walks.
No
Like
walks.
that, and that's really that's the big thing with Oklahoma. And you saw it last weekend. You've seen it whenever they're playing at their best. Whenever they have free opportunities, that's when it hurts, because that's typically when the lineup comes through. Pickens doesn't really give free passes like that. That's something. And you're getting gas. You're getting 79. I mean, she just set the new record again for recorded pitch. You're getting all kinds of speed. It's a tough matchup. I do think it's worth noting, like, all 4 teams on Oklahoma's side of the bracket have spent some time this year as the number 1 team in the country. Like, so you're getting the tough side of things out of the way, definitely in that first game, and potentially the second.
It reminds me of when, at that Tennessee series after it was over, Cassidy Pickering talking about Pickens was like, she's nobody is doing what she's doing right now. What are we supposed to do? And that's kind of like, now I think OU will be really prepared. They are better than they were a couple of months ago, but this is another sign of how much this team has grown, or
Yes.
about how much they've really grown. Because here's the thing: if OU can get some hits off of Pickens, the one thing about Tennessee is they don't have like a ton of great hitters.
Right.
The offensive stats for Tennessee are not amazing. They were 72nd in scoring during the season, and even in the postseason, it's not like they're just piling runs on
Right.
the board. They've gotten timely hits, which is what they did at OU a couple of months ago.
Right.
If you go back and look at those games, they weren't gashing Oklahoma. It was 2-2 in that first game going into extra innings, and then they scored 3 runs in the 8th inning.
Yep.
And then in game 3, they were down 2-0, I think, going into the 4th, and then scored all 5 of their runs in 1 inning.
Yep.
It's just going to be if OU's offense can generate stuff against Pickens. And that's where, like, to me, as much as Abby Dayton's been great, as much as Sydney Barker's been great, and like I think this is a game where you got to have Pickering and Parker. These are the two
They've
players
got
that
to
have
be their
been
best.
here.
Yes.
Like, Pickering has to set the tone, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
And like you mentioned, because free passes, dude, she has 58 walks in 204 innings.
Yep.
58. That is an insane low number of walks. That's crazy. And that's the thing, is you can see how this goes for OU in a worst case scenario where Pickering has an off game, Parker has an off game, and like maybe the lower the lineup you go, they're not getting a walk to get on base. Sydney Sanders isn't forcing a walk. Alana Agbayani's not forcing a walk. And now all of a sudden you're going into the 6th inning and it's 1-0. It's 2-1. There's ways that, so it's just, I think for OU, typically you've gone to the World Series before and you've looked at that first round matchup and it's not all that scary. I think OU can win this game. OU could easily win this game, but
Yeah.
it is a tough first round matchup, man.
It is. It's a tough draw. Like, Oklahoma ranks 5th nationally in scoring. They're 7.75 runs a game. The last two, this is just an interesting parallel. The last 2 teams over the last 5 games that Tennessee has played ranked first in scoring. Ohio State scored 8.2 runs a game. Nebraska was third, 7.9 runs a game. So top 3 offenses. They held them to 2 runs, 0 runs. Nebraska put up 5 in one game and then held them to 2 runs and then shut them out. So they have allowed 9 runs over 5 games against 2 of the best 3 offenses in the country.
And in those 2 games against Nebraska, Pickens gives up 1 run,
Mm-hmm.
gives up 1 run and strikes out 21 batters.
Yep.
And that's a Nebraska team that's good. That offense is good.
Yes, it's not just Jordy. Like
No, it's not.
they bat around. They do a great job. So it's tough. It's going to be a tough ask. I would say at this point in the season, I think Oklahoma's offense is the statistics are a little bit skewed, I think, just from their entire. This is not the level of offense that they have played all season long. They have taken it up a notch in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and so I think it's a little different. But by no means is this going to be a game where you should go in expecting to score 6, 7, 8 runs without really having to put pressure on Tennessee. It's going to be a tough one to find and manufacture runs.
Well, and part of the reason why I think this is such a tough draw for OU to start is because I think when you look at all of the teams, this might be the toughest matchup for Oklahoma from a schematic,
Yes.
tactical perspective. Having said that, holy cow, man! This is a good field, man. This is a really good field of teams. That top half of the bracket. I mean, it's not just OU and Tennessee, Florida and Texas. That's going to be a really fun game to watch, man. That's a hell of an opener to start the World Series. When you look at, because here's the other thing: as much as I think Tennessee is maybe the toughest matchup for OU, you look at some of these other teams, man. I mean, Florida outplayed OU to end the regular season.
Yep.
They just did. And think about what Florida did to OU in last year's semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Florida was this close to beating them twice in a row to get to the finals. OU had to have some heroics to get past Florida. Even Texas, who OU has Texas's number, they just have, but by all accounts is a very, very, very good team. Then you look at the bottom half of the bracket, man. Like I even look at Texas Tech is the team for me because I just go back to thinking anybody who remembers those 2023 matchups between OU and Stanford, the reason why OU won those games was because Stanford had no offense.
Right.
Kennedy was a handful. Texas Tech has an offense, man.
Yeah, they do.
And I mean, I look at some of these matchups, and this is the first time I've done this in a while. I look at some of these teams, and I'm like, oh, that team could pose an issue. Ooh, that team could pose an issue.
Yep.
What do you think about this field just as a whole?
I think if I was reseeding it, I mean, I think Oklahoma still probably would be the top seed for me with the teams left, but the gap between 1 and 6 is like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, there are, and not to take credit away from, we talked about this before, not to take credit away from teams like Oregon or Ole Miss. I mean, both of those teams are like Ole Miss is on a hot streak unlike anybody else right now. I mean, they've been incredible. But any of those other 5 teams in that top 6, including Texas Tech, I mean, it's you may end up watching Oklahoma dip out to somebody, and it really would not be that surprising because it's just a deep, deep field.
I think to me, this is one of those fields where like, I think if you're asking me to bet on any one team, I pick Oklahoma, not only because of the championship pedigree, but how this particular team is playing right now going into the World Series. I think this might be the first time in a while that if you ask me the field or Oklahoma, I'd pick the field. I would, because you could tell me that, look, OU loses to Tennessee. They immediately have to go in the loser's bracket, and then maybe they match up with Tech. Maybe they match up with Florida, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think the level of talent on these teams is closer than they have been before. Also, it's just not lost on me that 5 of the teams here are from the SEC. Again, speaks to just how good this team is, or how good the league is. And it's also a shame that if OU wins the championship, that it's going to be because it's in Oklahoma City. You know what I mean? It's just it's clear that if OU played anywhere else, they wouldn't win, but it's in Oklahoma City. So that's,
Right.
it's a lose. This is a lose-lose for Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Brian.
if Oklahoma State wouldn't have, relocated out of the state of Oklahoma for this season, they would be in their sixth straight Women's College World Series. But yeah, I if this team, I don't want to get too far into it, but if this team manages to find a way, where do you go from there? Like what? I mean, it's you're starting to talk like Boston Celtics, like way back, eight straight. Like I mean, you're starting to talk about because this team with what they return next year, what they add, the ceiling is just
There,
incredible,
there's
and it's
no, there's already no end in sight. If they win it this year, there's like beyond no end in sight.
right. Yeah,
That's where I think context matters too, because this, like, both things can be true. They lost a lot of talent, and there is still a lot of talent on this team.
right.
Having said that, but I just, if they were to do it this year with how young this team is, both from it's the fifth straight championship and this team is really young and they could keep doing this
Yeah.
perspective, it would maybe be the most impressive. And I think he's like, Patty was so emotional after that game 2 win over Bama. Like you could
Hmm.
see it. And she said, I didn't expect this. Now, I don't think that she's not saying, I think what she was saying is this team has this potential, but it was far from a guarantee they were going to reach
That they
it.
would reach it at this point in their careers already.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end this here by I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to pick a team to win, I imagine I have a guess on who it would be. Who would be, or who would it be, and who do you think makes it to the finals? Because I have a pick, but I'm curious. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this. Who would you pick?
I'm gonna say Oklahoma makes it to the finals. And I think they'll face Texas Tech.
I like it.
I think
I
Kennedy
like
has
it.
enough backing after what they because after what they just did to Florida State and Tallahassee, because it was dominant. I mean, Florida State had no answer offensively. Kennedy's got the she's got the backing to push through finally because she had Stanford right there each of the last two seasons. I think she's got enough help this time around.
This is I don't even want to. I think Oklahoma still could have won or still would have won in 23. But if you give Kennedy a 10% better offense in 23 with Stanford, they may have won it all that year.
Yeah,
That's how good she was, and she has been every bit as dominant this year.
yeah,
I don't even think it's respectful enough to call them a dark horse, but
yeah. It feels weird to
if
yeah. Looking and seeing a 12 seed next to them just doesn't feel right.
now, and this is a team that, like, yeah, if you're looking at all these teams and how they get there or how they make to the finals and win, Texas's Tech's path is pretty easy in the sense of it's Kennedy dominating and they get enough offense.
Yep.
I like the Tech pick. I don't even think they're a dark horse. I think they're a legitimate team to win it. I do. I think I'm going to go with Oklahoma and Florida.
That was my initial thought, but Texas Tech, well, I wanted to go something different.
I get no, look, dude, you could tell me it's Tech in Florida, like
Yeah.
genuinely.
Yeah.
Which I think would be really fun in its own. I have a hard time betting against Oklahoma, and I think as much as I don't even want to say this disrespectfully. Ole Miss had a great year. Oregon has had a great year. UCLA has had a great year. I think the 4 teams at the top of the bracket and Tech are the 5 teams I'm looking at the most.
Yeah.
And I just think of those teams, with what Florida did last year, and then combine it with what they've done this year and how much they just outplayed OU in that series, I think it's going to be OU Florida. And I think if we get there, I really think that's a series that could go either way.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with Oklahoma.
All right.
That's going to do it for us here on this episode of the Oklahoma Drill. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always as we discuss, preview this what should be a really, really fun Women's College World Series. This is one of the best times of the year. Make sure to like and subscribe here at this OU Insider YouTube channel. If you're not a VIP member over at OUinsider.com, now is never a better time to do so. We will have all kinds of written and video coverage starting Thursday and going through the rest of the World Series. You're not going to want to miss a thing. Make sure you tune it here over at OU Insider. Bryan, appreciate you as always. Go Thunder. We'll see you guys next time on the Oklahoma Drill. Take care.